Morning everybody, how you doing today? On this episode of the show, we're going to talk about canaries. Now, not the little tiny cute birds, we're talking about warrant canaries. Now, the idea actually relates to the bird. Originally, way back when in coal mines, miners used to use canaries in cages to detect carbon monoxide levels. So, unfortunately, if the bird passed, the miners knew something was up, or if the bird started to show signs of sickness, they knew there was a challenge within the mine. And it's the same core concept, is setting something out there, and if you start to see problems with it, you know something else is up. Now, in the context of today's discussion, this is actually generated by an updated report from the CloudFlare blog, where they publish a semi-regular or regular transparency report, and they've added new what are called warrant canaries into this report. Now, warrant canary is a really interesting legal workaround. So in the US specifically, but also in a lot of other countries, there are certain actions by the government and by law enforcement that prevent the parties that are involved from talking about it. So whether the gag order is written just into the law period, or they actually go to the court and say, we don't want anybody to be able to talk about this, the result is the same. A company, normally a service provider or a technology provider, is served some sort of warrant, or they are served a legal order requiring them to take an action that may or may not compromise some of their services integrity from a privacy or a security aspect. And because of the gag order, they can't say anything about it. So the idea here as a warrant canary is actually sort of a clever legal workaround, in that you're proving the negative constantly, and then you can no longer prove it. So if I say I have not been served any orders to crack my encryption scheme, and I can continually say that, when I am served the order, I take that statement down off of the site or down out of the transparency report, and my customers are supposed to then be, oh, wait a minute, the canary's gone, there's an issue here that we need to dive further into. And for the most part, warrant canaries can work if people know about them and if you understand the implications. So here's where things start to break down. Is it is a really good idea. If you are under a legal order, and of course we want all the companies that we work with as users, as partners, to follow the law in the country that they're in. The problem is if that law prevents them from telling us things that they've taken that may affect us, like steps they've taken that may affect us, so either breaking encryption or sharing other users' data with law enforcement or with the government, there's a lot of concerns there that are legitimate, and you want to know about it, but these gag orders prevent them from talking about it. So if you know that that's a scenario you're concerned about, and the company you're dealing with, the service provider you're dealing with, has a warrant canary, that actually works really, really well. If you don't know about the warrant canary system, and if you don't know if you're really concerned about that, then warrant canaries don't really help. Furthermore, if you do have a warrant canary in play with your service provider, like they are hosting it there and they pull it down, that raises additional challenges, because now they aren't allowed to talk about what event triggered the removal of that canary. So in Cloudflare's case, they added, I think, 4 new canaries to their report, and one of them was essentially, they haven't modified customer content based on law enforcement's requests. So say if that canary came down, and they're now essentially, by not stating it, they are stating that they had modified customer content. They aren't going to be allowed to talk about it. You as a user have a tiny bit more data, but not enough. And really why I wanted to highlight this on issue in an episode was twofold. A, so that you're aware of warrant canaries and you understand their linkage to sort of transparency reports, because transparency reports a lot of time, especially around US national security letters or NSL letters, can only report broadly in groups, so like 0 to 1,000 requests. That's not very useful, but warrant canaries can help to identify that. But the second issue I wanted to raise around this point was that this comes to sort of the larger debate around privacy, around encryption, around law enforcement's power within our communities, citizens' rights, because we don't have enough information. So we saw it a lot during the battle very publicly 2 or 3 years ago between Apple and law enforcement around encryption of their devices. And the argument was always the law enforcement's going dark. They need access to these devices, or criminals are going to get away with criminal activity and put citizenry and our communities at harm. The problem is there's not enough solid data to evaluate the risk to people's privacy and to sort of put it in context. So yes, let's say there was, let's keep the numbers easy. Let's say there was, 3,000 cases, which is a lowball estimate in the US, where they wouldn't be able to access the data. Well, there's 330 plus million citizens within the country that are doing activities online all the time. There are billions and billions of transactions that work around the similar types of security. So, you get the data to be able to make that decision as a community, and more data is better. The challenge here is these gag orders prevent us from gathering that data. So twofold here. Canaries are great if you know about them, but are still limited in that you can't actually understand the action taken. You just know that something bad happened when your service provider was forced to comply with a government order from somewhere about something, and then you need to take a slightly less uninformed decision as a user. And the second point is that these gag orders really prevent us from gathering the data that we need. We need this data in order to make an informed decision as a digital citizenry about what we want that balance to be between government's ability to reach into our technical systems and our personal privacy and the security of our systems. And this is becoming more and more important as we move all of our stuff into the cloud, and it really emphasizes how little geographic boundaries matter. And right now we have this sort of loggerheads going on where old school models are still trying to apply in a new school world, and obviously we're not in a borderless society yet, but there are those challenges that are starting to rear up, and having the data to properly contextualize the challenges we face is absolutely critical. So a little bit of a different topic today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think online at MarkNCA in the comments down below, and as always by email, me at markn.ca. I hope you're set up for a fantastic day. We'll see you on the next episode of the show.